very beautiful Monday morning. Thank you so much for keeping it TV47. My name is Linda Alela, and it is time for Morning Cafe, where we take you through what has been happening over, the weekend. That's what we'll be discussing this morning, the politics of the weekend. And importantly, we update you on what is happening right here on Matters News. Welcome on board. It's always a pleasure to have you joining me and taking me through this session. Also be part of this discussion. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47KE. We'd love to hear what do you have to say. Tell us what is happening wherever you are, so we are able to update each other. Most importantly, we'll also be taking a look at what is happening on the roads, just so you get to know or you're updated in the event that you step out. This is what we expect. Later on, we discuss matters lactating, or better, matters breastfeeding. It's very important that you understand that this is World Breastfeeding Week. So to the mothers out there, to the fathers, to everybody who is part and parcel of a family, you know very well that, taking care of children is part and parcel of every other person out here. So we'll be updating you, or we'll be training you or teaching you some basics on what's important on matters breastfeeding, what it is that you're supposed to do for a woman in the event that she's breastfeeding, and also as a mother, how do you get to handle the baby at this delicate moment. Welcome on board once again. But importantly, before we get to that point, I'll be taking you through what is happening in the world of news, what we've prepared, and also what is there on the newspaper. So let's kickstart by what it is that my team has prepared. And 16 people, among them an assistant chief, have been arrested in connection with tribal clashes that rocked parts of Nisuit, Maria Shoni, and Olposimoro areas in Joro Nakuru County. The suspects shall be arraigned in court today.
According to Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembeya, the 16 suspects will be presented in court tomorrow to face charges of murder, arson, assault, and promoting warlike activities. He condemned the incident that has left 5 people dead, 40 admitted in various hospitals, and over 80 injured.
Kufikia juzi, watu 5 walikuwa wameuawa kwa hizo vita. Watu 83 walikuwa wameumia, 40 ndio tunaongea kwa sasa bado wako hospitalini. Huko hapa Provincial General Hospital kuna wengine ambao wamekuwa referred hapo, wengine wako Molo, wengine wako Njoro, wengine wako Elbagon wanapata matibabu. Hawa ambao waliumia, mdogo ako na miaka 19. Na yule mzee kabisa ako na miaka 58. Hawa 5 ambao walikufa, yule mdogo ako na miaka 16. Yule wa juu ako na miaka 35. Kuna mmoja ambaye hatukupata ile documentation, ni a non adult, kwa hivyo hatujathibitisha miaka yake ni ngapi.
The skirmishes left at least 198 houses touched and over 3,000 residents displaced from 10 villages, who are now camping at Nisuit, Ainaptich, Misengekwa primary schools and Elbagon police station. Natembeya noted that the national and county governments, in partnership with Kenya Red Cross Society, have started distributing foodstuff, medicines and construction materials to the affected families in the camps, calling on those whose houses were not set ablaze and are still in the temporary camps to go back to their homes.
Ambao wametoroka nyumbani kwa sababu ya hizi vita ni watu 3,008, 3,008. Wengi sasa wako Nisuit Primary School, Musegekwa Primary School, Elbagon Police, na mahali inaitwa Ainaptich Primary School. Zile nyumba ambazo zimechomwa, nyumba za hali tofauti. Kuna zile za nyasi, kuna zile za mabati, ni 198. Tumewakamata watu 16 kutoka kwa jamii zote mbili, wako kwa police station, wamehojiwa, wamerecord statement na watapelekwa kotini kesho.
The Rift Valley Regional Commissioner further added that the regional security teams have been in consultation with Kenya Forest Service and the National Lands Commission to come up with a lasting solution on the perennial fighting that has been attributed to land. He called on the locals to embrace peace and coexist in harmony. For TV47, my name is Tracy Mukami.
Well, thanks, Trishi, for that update. Now, the Ogier community members want the government to implement an order by the African Court on Human and People's Rights in Arusha to resettle them to end the population untold suffering. The community members say that no action has happened 3 years after the court made the ruling.
The Ogiek community members who met in Nandi County to plead with the government to honor the court's ruling lamented that they have been subjected to a lot of suffering after being uprooted from Kipkurere, Tinderet, Sengalo and Sengonik forest blocks, which is part of the Mau forest complex.
Sisi wana wa Ogiek hatujapata uhuru tangu siku hiyo. Sisi tumetembea kuanzia Kenya mpaka Ethiopia. Tukarudi huko. Tuliwakilisha kesi yetu huko Arusha.
Vile kesi ilifanywa, kesi ilikatwa ya kwamba sisi turudishwe nyumbani. Mpaka wa leo, ilikuwa tarehe 26 mwezi wa 5 mwaka wa 2017. Na hadi wa leo serikali imekuja kukalia hiyo judgment ambaye African Court of Justice ilitoa.
Hii misitu hii, ukiona misitu hii, wakati watu wa kabila ingine walikaa wa reserve, tukakawa hii misitu. Tuko na map yetu 1907, tuko na map aliandikwa 1907 reserve.
Hatutaki kutupatia makao yetu, tunatetea tukilia nyumbani, tunataka twende nyumbani ka.
Calvin Chitwa, TV47, was in Gishu County.
Well, unfortunate occurrence right there. Now, for many girls and young women are forced to stay at home as schools remain shut, menstruation comes at a high cost. They often have to choose between food on the table and basic hygiene. But a new initiative by Plan International has eased the burden for families living in Mathare, Nairobi, by offering free showers and sanitary towels.
15-year-old Jacinta Mutethia lives with her mother Jemima Kalemi in Mathare, one of the most densely populated informal settlements in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. The challenge of menstrual hygiene management goes beyond just accessing sanitary pads. For many girls like Jacinta, menstruation comes at a high cost.
Kuhakikisha mama zao pesa na wanasema mama zao na wanyima juu hakuna otherwise juma zao itabidi wachange za sapa.
As a result, Plan International, a development and humanitarian organization, came up with a Shower for Girls project that pays for girls like Jacinta and Glorian Wairimu to access bathroom services.
We wanted to ensure that we were responding to specific needs for girls in a way that is very personal and that is transformative. So we'll be looking to see what are the lessons learned from that and how we might scale that up and how that informs our urban programming as we move forward.
The project was started to ease the burden on both girls and their parents, torn between the option of putting food on the table and addressing sanitary needs. Initially, most of these needs were being addressed in schools, which distributed free sanitary pads and provided bathrooms and toilets. But with the closure of schools and shortage of water, the project has become a lifeline for many here.
Before corona ikuje, life ilikuwa poa, tulikuwa shule ulikuwa unapata enough water, ulikuwa unaoga asubuhi na jioni. Sasa ukiwa home unapata ati utoga once per day ama unakosa kuoga siku moja, unaoga the next day juu ya maji.
Plan International is hoping to expand the initiative to reach more girls and is calling on the Kenyan government to prioritize hygiene for girls as part of its ongoing response to the pandemic. Nanok Lauren, TV47.
Now, the county government of Trans Nzoia, through the Deputy Governor, Dr. Stanley Tyras, has come out to deny allegations by healthcare workers that they lack quarantine and isolation facilities. Our reporter, Boniface Baraza, has the details.
These are complaints by healthcare workers in Trans Nzoia County who say they are worried about their well-being.
We have colleagues who are now positive, and unfortunately, these colleagues have been instructed to isolate themselves at home and we do not know the progression of the disease, maybe the next day we shall call our colleague and they are dead in their rooms.
If we are not going to be protected at all, our things are going to be in a mess, and even we are going to infect our families.
This situation is giving the leadership of this county sleepless nights, and through Dr. Stanley Tarus, the deputy governor, the county is putting in place measures to address the grievances.
Hapa Trans Nzoia numbers ziko zinaelekea juu. Sahi Trans Nzoia vile tunaongea mpaka sahi watu 10 tayari wamepata hiyo virusi ya corona hapa Trans Nzoia. Tunashukuru Mungu, watu 3 walipona, wameweza kwenda nyumbani. Sahi wale ambao wako kwa tunawazidi kuwachunguza ni watu 7. Tuko na hata maafisa wetu wa afya wengine ambao walipata na ugonjwa, lakini tunawashughulikia. Wengine wako private clinic, wengine wako Mount Elgon, na serikali inazidi kuwashughulikia.
Kuhusu madaktari wetu kusema sehemu yao ya kutengwa wakingangana na virusi haijatengwa, wao madaktari lazima pia wachungwe ndio wachunge wananchi. Na unajua kazi ya udaktari sio kazi, hiyo ni wito. Wamepewa kibali na Mungu na lazima tuwape motisha ili wasaidie watu wetu.
However, Tarus urged religious leaders to pray for frontline workers who risk their lives to combat the spread of the deadly coronavirus.
Na tunashukuru rais alifungua makanisa, na mzidi kuombea madaktari wetu ili wakuwe na afya mzuri ili waweze kutushughulikia. Nafikiri hata tukimaliza hapa wengine wetu tutaenda kwa makanisa tushukuru Mungu ili hii corona ipate kutuondokea kwa jina la Yesu. Ama mnasema nini? Tungependa tupone turudi hali ya kawaida. Tusikue tu tunaishi kwa uoga kwa maneno ya corona.
On his part, the leader of minority in the County Assembly of Trans Nzoia, Emmanuel Waswa, said the fight against COVID-19 is and should be a collective responsibility.
Lazima tufuate sheria ya nchi kwa ajili ya virusi vya corona. Najua Wakenya wengi hawataki kusikia sheria, wanataka kuona, na ukiona utaonea kwa mwili wako, na ukikufa huwezi amuka. Kwa hivyo ninaomba mfuate hizo sheria, kwa sababu wanasema daktari wa mwili yako ni wewe mwenyewe.
The leaders were speaking during distribution of relief food to families of boda riders in Kolongolo. Boniface Barasa, TV47, Trans Nzoia County.
Now, they live among us, and each day does not appear different for them from the face value, but deep inside them, persons living with a disability or with hearing impairment have moving and told stories. Unlike Andrin Kilemi reports, some cannot hear properly because they did not study the Kenyan Sign Language in school. Take a look at this.
6 a.m. Monday, and we set out to Nairobi's Utawala Estate, which is approximately 24 kilometers from the country's capital, Nairobi. We are headed to Stephen Miner's residence, a 30-year-old man who since birth has never heard or uttered a word. He is deaf and dumb. We arrive at his home where he lives with his sister Monica. It is 7 a.m. He is ready to go to work, but first, a cup of tea. After having his breakfast, Miner grabs his backpack ready to start his journey to the city. And when he gets to town, he walks straight to his place of work. He opens up his business. This is where he gets his daily bread. He says he loves his job, even though the daily earnings are too little.
Mapato ya hii kazi yangu ni kidogo sana.
Maina went to school up to standard 3, and therefore communication between me and him is a bit complex. He did not learn the Kenyan Sign Language. His signs are local. His sister Monica narrates how Maina had once disappeared for a period of 10 years.
Tukamtafuta kwa manti na relatives hatukumpata. Ndio sasa tukaanza after 1 week akaanza kutangazwa, lakini hakupatikana. Sasa tumekaa nilikuwa primary by then, nikasoma high school nikamaliza, nikaenda college.
His family continued to look for him. Little did they know that their son was in Mombasa. How and when he got there is still a puzzle to date.
Mtafuta here and there, tulimtafuta kwa magazeti, kwa ma TV, lakini hatukumpata. But at long last niliona headline kwa newspaper Daily Nation ati alikuwa amepatikana Mombasa, lost and found, na nikatafuta my all means nikamwendea Mombasa.
And as soon as Monica got to the city of Mombasa, she was shocked after finding out that another woman was claiming Maina, saying that he had given birth to twins years back and that Maina was one of the twins who had disappeared.
Tulifika tukaonyeshana evidence, mimi nikapeana picha rasmi yenye alipigwa, yenye tumepigwa as a family, my dad, my mom, wote wenye tumezaliwa pamoja vile tumepigwa, tulienda nazo zote.
After in-depth investigations, Monica got to reunite with his brother Maina after a decade. They set out to Nairobi, where Maina now works as a street vendor. He sells beaded stuff alongside other basic commodities. His neighbors at work say he's quite a hard-working man.
Kama furugu sasa, kama makelele nini ama vita imeanza ama matia gazi yamerushwa, namwambia na kujanga namguza namwambia, namuonyesha sana, mpoimbia na mkono, namwambia hebu angalia pale. Akiona hivi akiona mahali watu wamekusanyika, anapenda sana, anakimbia hapo mbio. Anaenda anaanza kuangalia juu anaona fani, anaona vitu fani. Anasimama hapo anaangalia, alafu anarudi hapa anaanza kutuambia. Anaanza kunielezea venye ameona nini. Na anapenda sana akiona kwanza watu wakiibiwa ama wakishikwa kwa mfuko. Anapenda kukimbiza huyo mtu sana, anamsaidia, anamwambia funga hiyo mfuko. Huyo anataka kutuimbia, anapenda hivyo sana.
Communication between Stephen and his clients is rather complex. It is this challenge, however, that enables him to meet his daily needs.
This is Mr. and Mrs. Yego's home. Yego and his wife have been married for a long time now. Their lives are dependent on sign language. The two cannot hear or speak. They were both born deaf and dumb. Before Yego met his wife Paris, he had married another woman whose hearing ability was just fine. After their first child was born, their marriage began to fall apart. Yego narrates of how one thing led to another until the two could not stay together any longer.
Nilikuwa na bibi mwingine ambaye alikuwa na uwezo wa kusikia. Tuliishi naye tukabarikiwa na mtoto wa kiume. Baadaye akatoroka na akabeba kila kitu pamoja na mtoto.
His wife Paris on the other end tells us of their challenges as a couple. She says since their marriage she has not been able to bear a child.
Mara nyingi huwa najawa na mawazo kwa sababu sijafanikiwa kupata mtoto. Na pia nimeenda hospitalini na kufanyiwa uchunguzi na madaktari, wakasema kuwa sina tatizo lolote. Nimepewa madawa lakini bado nawaza kwa nini sijapata mtoto.
Apart from that, the couple tells me that it is really difficult to live under the same roof with their inability to hear. Paris narrates how one morning she woke up and all their clothes had been stolen from the hanging lines outside.
Nilifua nguo, nikazianika hapa nje. Usiku wezi wakakuja wakazichukua zote kabisa, hadi zile za kanisa ambazo huwa tunaimba nazo.
With the current coronavirus pandemic, life hasn't been easy for Yego and his wife.
Nilikuwa na deni la nyumba, likawa linaongezeka mara kwa mara. Ya kwanza ilikuwa 5,000, ikawa 6,000, baadaye 8,000, kisha 10,000. Mara kwa mara mwenye nyumba alikuwa akilalamikia kodi kwa sababu hatukuwa tumelipa kwa miezi 3. Bwana yangu akazungumza naye na kumweleza kuwa hawajalipwa kwa muda huo wote. Akamweleza mwenye nyumba awe mtulivu kidogo ili azungumze na mkubwa wake kazini, lakini mkubwa naye akasema tutulie tu.
Their landlord says for 3 months now the couple hasn't been paying rent.
Na tangu 2017 nimekuwa na wao, tukisukumana na wao tu, saa ingine wanalipa nyumba, saa ingine inawasukuma, mimi nawapea nafasi tu watabute pesa. Na sababu najua ni watu hawajiwezi sana, nimekuwa nikiwavumilia na tumekaa tukifurahiana na wao. Na wakati hii COVID-19 imekuja, Ndio sasa challenges ikawa ni wazi, maana kule huyu bwana alikuwa anafanya vibarua na huyu bibi yake akienda Nairobi kufanya vibarua, maisha ikawa ngumu sasa wakati wa lockdown.
Those are some of the challenges that the deaf community live with, and it is through these challenges that their lives become interesting, while overcoming them makes life meaningful. Andrin Kilemi for TV 47.
Well, interesting piece right there, Andrin Kilemi. Now, to some bit of politics, and leaders from Western region allied to Deputy President William Ruto have yesterday actually had prayers for Mwambu Mabonga in Bumula constituency at his home. The legislature have condemned the handshake team for undermining constitution. They also denounced Baringo Senator Gideon Moi's candidature for 2022 presidential election. And before we delve deep into that, we also have some issues on matters Kanu wrangles and in Nyeri, and of course there's been a leadership wrangle that rocked Kanu party in Nyeri County, with two rival groups fighting over leadership of the party that has declared its support for the ruling Jubilee Party. One faction led by Mount Kenya Region Chairperson Joseph Njunge Mukirai say that it recognizes John Muya as the branch chairman, while the other led by Nyeri Combative Chairman Karanja Njeru. So we'll be delving deep into discussing this later on the broadcast as we take a look at the politics of the weekend. Betty Adera will be joining me. She's the leader of Kanu Women Congress right here in Nairobi. That should be later on the next segment. But before that, we have Alenga Torres. This one is a tongue twister. I always like it when he pronounces it himself, who's a communication expert, joining me to take us through the newspaper. Alenga.
Yes,
Your name is a tongue twister.
You're doing well. You're doing well already.
I tried, yeah?
Yes.
I tried to brush it over, so at least I'm not able, like, at least I don't do the wrong or injustice to it. Good to have you. How was your weekend?
My weekend was fantastic. What about yours?
Mine was good also, I thank God.
Great.
And we're here back to the grind.
Sure.
All right, so I am taking a look at what it is that we have on the newspapers. We have the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, and the People Daily. So trying to open them as we take a look at exactly what it is that is here. Some bit of a hiccup, but all the same, so much has been happening, especially on matters politics. That one that I've touched on briefly as we open the newspapers and we go through what it is that has been captured. Most of the issues in regards to corruption and also the politics of the weekend. Mulembe Nation. What do you make of the politics of Mulembe Nation?
The politics of Mulembe Nation is a great, is a big concept at the moment, and we're seeing basically it's a bucket rich, it's a bucket full of votes region, and everybody is trying to align themselves with the region. But it must be remembered historically that the people of Mulembe who form the larger western part of Kenya do not have displayed over time that they do not actually vote in a block, or rather they have exhibited tendencies of being overly democratic, if I could say. So this time round in 2022, we do not know if they are really going to line behind one single candidate, or they are still going to vote in regions as they have always voted before.
And them coming out to support specific leaders that they prefer is also one thing that is getting a little bit interesting for very many people. And coming here, now that we're looking at the People Daily, the front page, there's still some clashes that are being witnessed, across different parts of the country. That one in Joro, of course, this is pretty much unfortunate, looking at how much villagers have had to lose their lives, and the skirmishes continue. It's pretty much unfortunate, so to speak. 16 now have been arrested. Politicians are being sought for after these clashes, and health workers pick up an injured resident after he was shot with arrows by armed youths at Ndoswa village of Marioshoni area, that is Nakuru County, over the weekend. So far, 5 people have been killed and 25 seriously injured in the skirmishes. This is captured on page 14, but also on the front page. These skirmishes, why is it that we've not been able to get, answers and, just quell these issues? once and for all?
What is happening in Njoro should not actually be happening at all, because these are communities that have lived together for a very long time. And again, these kind of clashes around that region have been so prevalent over a long time. That means that by now we should have found a real adequate solution to deal with them. Is it peace building? Is it bringing enough security personnel in the region? Is it talking to the leaders of that region? But more fundamental is to investigate the real cause of these clashes, because they have been on since 1992, in the 80s. Through the years, we've been witnessing that, and people lose lives, and it's not something that should be happening, especially right now. We have a pandemic to deal with, so we cannot add another thing on it, like the clashes in Njoro. This should come to an end, and it should take both the community and the security agencies to bring sanity to that place.
All right, on that aside, a family raises 800 million for jailed Wahungu. The sentencing of Granny is not something that we can stand or we can take lightly. So the Wahungu siblings, both here in Kenya and Uganda, came out in large numbers to save the Granny. Co-accused Sirisi, a member of parliament, Waluke, hasn't been as lucky, with reports that he has managed to raise only 250 million of the 727 million fine that is expected ahead of a bond hearing on a Friday, page 6. What does it speak? And anyway, in regards to corruption, what do you make of this?
Well, Luke's issue is an issue that should is an issue that we need to interrogate and ask ourselves: is the prosecution of corruption finally happening? And if it is happening, is it good for country? Because what I have seen is that a couple of people have taken Waluke's judgment as, maybe some have looked at it as a judgment upon a community. Some have looked at it as a way, as a sign for the judiciary now eventually handling a corruption case. And for me, I think there is responsibility to everything that you do. If Waluke was found guilty of embezzling Kenyans' funds, and that the law should take its course, and it has actually taken its course. So the issue around bond is actually also a constitutional right. So we could wait and see what the court decides on the bail, on the bond application. And perhaps I think also there was they must have had a prayer on the review of the judgment in terms of the number of years.
All right. Well, the story captured extensively on page 6 of the People Daily, and also on the front page, and continues on page 4, is on the senators' protest on a threat of revenue sharing standoff, and also a story just painting the picture of the numbers of COVID-19 right here in the country where they stand. We are now at 22,053. Sorry, those are the total cases that we have right now since the first time that one case was recorded. And 8,477 have recovered so far, while we have 369 deaths so far. Out of samples that have been tested is 315,723. And an alarming point right here is that the University of Nairobi has been ravaged by coronavirus, as 27 people have been infected amongst the staff. And the other day, last week, that is our CS for Matters Education said that the campuses are not ready, or the universities or schools are literally not ready to reopen. And looking at these numbers coming from the University of Nairobi, what does it speak, first of all? And does it really, again, justify why it was necessary that the Ministry of Health, decided otherwise, that, these crucial education institutions are going to reopen come 2021?
We remember what the CS for Health said, which has been really taken up by so many people. He said, you can get it and I can get it. So but we should not really isolate the issue of the University of Nairobi in terms of having suffered a big blow in terms of deaths and even infections. But the most important thing we should look at the moment is, and that is what I've been asking ourselves, that our universities are home. And mostly, we actually have technical universities in this country. We have universities that teach medicine and science. Wouldn't this have been an important time for them to actively participate in finding a solution for COVID-19, other than closing down the campuses and just being home together with junior learners like primary and secondary? So we should have had a moment to really differentiate our institutions of higher learning and the position they hold in terms of finding solutions in moments like this.
All right, yes, of course, the other day, that should have been on Saturday, the University of Nairobi lost the Dean of Studies, that is Dr. Ken Ouko, who succumbed to COVID-19, also, raising that alarm. And coming over to page 2 and 3, I think just expounding some more on these particular stories that have been captured, but an interesting one right here. And Akombe now ruffles feathers at IEBC with Msando's death comments. A former commissioner has accused senior officials in the electoral agency of having had a hand in the death of former ICT manager, that is Chris Msando. And she says, like Judas, they sold you for 30 cents. We will find justice for you. And I think former IEBC, that is CEO Ezra Chiloba, has come out to, defend himself. And, in what Ezra says, our silence is not your license. Former IEBC CEO Ezra Chiloba responds to Roslyn Akombe.
Maybe this is a very sad situation. Number one, we have the widow of late Chris Msando. We have the children, and we have the family that suffered a very huge blow. But then for us to continue digging into this matter every other time in terms of just trying to look relevant in the situation is not really good for the family. This family required to come to terms with whatever happened to their loved one. And if there was anybody that had information, it would have been very nice for that person to come out with the information and share it out and tell the family this is what happened, so that they get closure for that. It's very disturbing when they read such things on the news and even on social media. For them as a family, it sort of wraps the pain that they have already gone through, and they are still nursing, and they will still nurse for a very, very long time to come. So if Dr. Roslyn had information about this death, it is imperative for her to come forward and clear the air around it. It should not be a war between Chiloba and herself and just talking out on social media, but she should candidly come out and tell us what the information that she has. That would be very important for country, and it will also be important for the family to find closure.
All right, we wait to see how this is going to pan out. And crossing over to page, okay, well, I think we've touched on that one. On Luya Tangatanga, leaders criticize colleagues of visiting Gideon Moi, and we'll expound on that some more. That is as we proceed with the broadcast. But senators protest threats ahead of revenue debate. And lawmakers, however, say no amount of intimidation will push them to support formula that they feel is unfair. We're still on this one after, a month or two or days and sessions of trying to crack the brain and, just trying to see what it is that will be the best formula for the people. We're expecting something tomorrow. Do you suppose that tomorrow then is going to be a solution to this?
And I would like to be very categorical on this, that the Senate is being mischievous. The Senate is playing games on us, because the Senate is the upper house. It's an able house. It has men and women that can sit together and find a solution for country. It has men and women that can deliberate on an issue, and there is no issue that we expect should be beyond the Senate, because they are the upper house. So if an issue such as the revenue sharing formula came to them, it is their prerogative to sit down and find a solution. By the time they're speaking to us as a country, they're giving us a solution. But we should not be seeing the battle of supremacy in the Senate as we saw last week. And we could actually still expect the same tomorrow. There may not be a big difference. But again, I captured something on social media 2 days ago, or a day ago, where I was saying that the Senate is no longer going to meet due to COVID-19. I don't know how true that is. But again, the buck stops with the Senate. They have to figure out a solution. We are not interested in how they argue according to their divisions in the Senate. We're not interested in how the hardline stance that each party wants to take, but we are interested in a formula that is going to work for country, a formula that is going to release our counties from the limbo they have been thrown into. It's going to give them time and capacity to actually sit down and formulate their plans for the next few years. That is what we are interested in, and that's what Senate should be doing at the moment. Debating and making noise and maintaining hardline stance is not going to help the country. You saw them walk out of the Senate last Tuesday singing some patriotic songs. But do you think that is really important for us? That is not important. They should not resign to tell us like they cannot find a solution.
All right, well, we wait to see what will happen in regards to that. This even as we continue to deal toughly or harshly on matters COVID-19, and deaths inch closer to 400 mark after 5 more succumbed. That is as of yesterday. COVID-19 related fatalities ravaged Top University, and also a report coming from World Health Organization last week that Kenya is not on the best trajectory, especially on the numerous numbers of deaths that have been conducted, that have been reported so far. Another report right here is that police stations join weaker links in anti-coronavirus war, and situation exacerbated by rising cases of arbitrary arrest and prolonged detentions of suspects. So police stations across the country are emerging as some of the weakest links in the fight against COVID-19, given the rising number of deaths of officers and inmates. What does it speak?
It speaks to the gap that we have in terms of awareness around COVID-19. It is saddening that up to this point, we have not really created the awareness that shifts the responsibility to protect oneself from the government to yourself. Until now, most people are still wearing a mask to avoid arrest and not to avoid infection. Till now, we are still having petty offenders being hauled up in the cells, and that actually is spiking the infections. And also even our police forces, when you look at their transport, sometimes when a truck passes and it's loaded with police officers and they are not maybe wearing masks, and you think, to them, what does it speak? So in my opinion, what I think is at this point in question where we have reached, we should transfer the responsibility of protecting citizens from COVID-19 from the government to the citizens themselves. A situation where Linda knows when I'm coming out, when I'm walking out of the house, what kind of preparation should I put on so that I am safe and I also keep the other people close to me safe.
All right, well, let's cross over to what is on the Standard newspaper, and we start off with what is on the front page. Corona billionaires, why some businesses are thriving at this point, and innovators, manufacturers, contractors, and e-commerce entrepreneurs are collectively sharing the biggest part of the coronavirus billions as the world moves away from traditional ways of doing business. That one has been captured extensively on page 8. But also it's true, it's interesting that there's some of the people who are actually celebrating right now, while others are complaining that business is not good. Some people have lost their jobs. So what does it speak about the future? And now that there's also a report that has come out, indicating but there are likelihoods that, campuses or, universities will now shift from, that physical aspect of people being in school to that aspect of learning online purely and squarely.
Then every disruption, whether positive or negative, is supposed to inspire some sort of change. It's supposed to inspire innovation amongst people. Remember, a long time ago, before we were even born, there was the invention of the fire in the monolithic period of history, where man started making weapons from stone and all that after the invention of fire. Then there came the agrarian revolution, and it changed the whole setup of the world. But now we're having this pandemic that is sort of a change agent. Now, it is up to us to take it positively and try to innovate solutions that are going to take us from this point onwards. Because it's very true that after this pandemic is gone, things are not going to remain as normal as they were. And there has to be a lot of adaptations that are going to take place. So the people that are going to be keen on finding a solution around this, the people that are going to be keen in terms of finding innovations around this are obviously going to reap. And there are those who are actually doing that. And then when we come to the issue of universities or higher learning in terms of transferring it to or enabling it with ICT to make it purely or mostly online, that is something that Kenya should not have waited for a pandemic to force that. It should have been happening already. And right now, ICT must be a key driver to development, must be a key driver to resuscitating the economy and taking it up. There are universities that had already established a robust online platform. For example, the Mount Kenya University, they had a very robust online learning platform. And when this pandemic happened, they just migrated all their students onto that platform, and learning is going on in that institution. But what about the others, where, if I go back to my point earlier on, they have all gone home together with kindergarten children waiting for the resumption of school? That is not supposed to be happening at all.
All right, of course, this story this also a view that has been captured on the People Daily. The future of university education is online, and the education sector has been disrupted in this country is no small measure. And I think this is not just in the country, but across the globe. And like you rightfully put it, probably we should have prepared before, because then you look at the kind of discrepancies that are witnessed today. And certainly sad to note, because then you realize there are very many students who do not have the privilege of accessing education or matters education at that level. But then again, we can only hope that this will come in with lessons that are going to be helpful for the sake of our students. Also, still on the front page, and they capture a very interesting report right here, just taking note of the president's track record and the time that he's left with or at the helm, knowing very well that at some point he had so much interest on leaving a legacy that is going to be friendly. So this is the front page of the Standard newspaper, and they say inside last 735 days as president, the coronavirus pandemic is eating away into the little time that President Uhuru Kenyatta has been left with, and signs are palpable that he could not enter the lame, or he could soon enter the lame dark phase at most. So he has 12 short months to do what it is that he can do possibly. And the biggest question then is what is it that he's able to achieve and do what he did not do right? Will he hack it? That is the question that the Standard newspaper is asking and expounded more. And what do you make of this? And I think it's a conversation that we need to have. And this should not just be about President Uhuru Kenyatta, but I assume should cut across all the leaders that we have right now, right from the level of the MCAs shooting up to the top.
It is surely a difficult time being Uhuru Kenyatta or being the president of Kenya.
Yeah.
But what we need to discuss in this Jubilee government is this government made a lot of errors in their first term. They established a very shaky government in the first time, and they made a lot of errors, including over borrowing, for projects that were not really going to fit back into the economy in the shortest time possible to be able to repay for themselves. That was a big blunder that is becoming very impossible for Uhuru Kenyatta to walk away from that. Number two, he has suffered the plight of having a very ambitious deputy president, and then the divisions within his own party. And when you look at all that, it doesn't cultivate a good environment for a president who is working for a legacy. But most important to note is that what Uhuru Kenyatta could do at the moment is to cultivate a cohesive country, because in the first reign of Jubilee government, that was from 2013 to 2017, they established a very antagonistic approach of ruling the country. There was so many divisions that were so very glaring. There was issues of inequality. There was issues of political manipulations, and all these things have piled up and undermined the last few years of the president, because eventually you have to pay for some of the things that you do. But what is it speaking to even future leaders of this country? It is that when you were given a responsibility to lead the country, you've been given a divine responsibility to shepherd each and everyone, all and sundry, including those who voted for you and those who did not vote for you. So it's the responsibility of our leaders to understand that whatever we do, whatever we say, there comes a time when we have to pay responsibility for that. And that is what is happening with the last days of President Uhuru Kenyatta. All the things that happened from the time Jubilee took over are now coming home to roost. The chickens are now coming home to roost, and it's a very difficult moment for him. With resuscitating the economy, that to me is plainly a no, because it's not going to happen. There's a very short time for us to bounce back. In terms of creating a cohesive Kenya, there's also a very big challenge, because if you observe the Tanga issue and the Kieleweke issue and all these things that are piling up, the lack of commitment towards the BBI from his own party, from a faction of his own party. So these are really, really serious issues that are haunting the last days of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and it's gonna take a very decisive president to sail through the last few days and eventually make up for all the things that have happened. But it's not going to be possible. It's not going to be very easy for him.
And if he has to achieve anything, then, of course, as they would say, his foot soldiers are key in terms of ensuring that, yes, he is successful. And amongst them, Munya making laudable strides in agriculture sector. This is according to the People's Daily, page 11. And they say that Agriculture CS Peter Munya seemed out of step when he was appointed to the Ministry of Agriculture in January 2020. His initial missteps inspired little confidence in his ability to manage one of the most controversial ministries or ministerial dockets. Now, however, developments in that ministry to date suggest a man who has found his feet and a purpose and concentrating on delivering results. This is my question this morning. Do you suppose that indeed CS Munya has done so much, or is it that there's no much talk because of COVID-19, or is it that he probably is being, compared to his predecessor or to Kiunjuri, who probably was considered as a person who did not, achieve nothing. And I think every other time President Uhuru Kenyatta pointing a finger at him. So when you compare him to someone who had done nothing at all, then probably he would look as though he's done something. So gauging on, what has been happening in the agriculture sector across the country right now, as of now, would you equally say that Munya has done well?
Munya is there are two things you've pointed out in trying to analyze the situation. And number one was there nothing done by his predecessor that now Munya looks like he's working? And number two is, has he actually had a good track record? So those two things are pretty having the same weight, in the sense that Munya was a lucky man, because he took over from a guy that had been, I think, written off by most Kenyans. So any change would mean something very good for the country. He inspired hope. And Munya, having been in government for a long time and having also been a governor, I think he came in with on the right footing. He knew exactly what to do and he knew exactly where to start. And in the first days of Munya, he was very active and he tried to fix a lot of things that had been opened up by the previous CS for agriculture. Munya also has been very vocal in terms of speaking out what he is doing. He has been touring the country, and you saw even a few days ago he was in Western Kenya trying to negotiate the revival of the sugar industry. That gives an impression that he is actually working. So for me, agriculture is a very important aspect of our life, especially for a developing nation like Kenya. We need to really enhance our agriculture, really invest in it. So when we have a focused CS like him, it's a good thing for the country.
All right, well, away from that, let's just take a look at one of the cartoon editions on the papers, that is the People Daily. I think there's nothing much to speak about it, but all the same we will. And this is the face of Matiang'i trying to quell the battles that have been ongoing in City Hall, trying to put off the fire. Just how successful? Well, we all know that, tough-talking Matiang'i goes somewhere and he will always ensure that before he steps out of this place, things are in order. So looking at the situation in a City Hall and how tough times have been for the MCAs, for the Speaker, for Governor Mike Sonko himself, and also for Badi right now, and generally for the people of Nairobi, do you suppose then that he will be the ultimate solution to all these leadership wrangles that have been bedeviling the City Hall?
The Nairobi MCS, I will say again, I've said on this show before that they are a real disappointment, and that I will repeat. They're a real disappointment. But this is a culture that is seen with our political leaders. They feel when you are a political leader, you have enough space to misbehave as you want, but you will still be called Mheshimiwa, because that seems to be a constant. But we need to reach a place where we interrogate the behavior of these leaders and what implication it has on the whole country, because the wrangles in Nairobi County have been to the detriment of the progress of the country to a very, very big extent. But then CS Matiang'i has coming in. I heard him say he wants to have a police station within the county assembly. That alone should speak shame on the faces of these Nairobi County legislators, because you cannot reach a point where you cannot manage yourself, you cannot manage your own behavior until somebody else has to bring a police station within your office to be able to tame your behavior. It's a moment for them to now rethink their ways.
All right, and speaking of which, we witnessed what happened in terms of police brutality the other day, and this is what actually triggered the coming in of Matiang'i. And also another interesting piece here that has been captured on page 12 of the People Daily, and a day in Askari's Long Arms. County government enforcement officers, commonly known as Askaris, have been accused of using excessive force when dealing with hapless hawkers. This incident involving a tomato hawker on Kenyatta Avenue in Kisumu town seems to prove the claims. So this has been a battle that has been ongoing. I remember at some point I have captured this story extensively. And when you listen to the stories of these hawkers, it's pretty much unfortunate that they have to be handled that way when they're going out there to, sort of just try and make ends meet. But equally, you ask yourself, why is it that it gets to that particular point? Anyone to speak on behalf of the Askaris, but what would you say about the aspect of police brutality and how they handle some of these people who've probably gone against the law?
Yeah, when you look at these pictures, you see quite a number of things, but most fundamental to think about is the nature of reinforcement officers in Kenya. What is the mentality behind them? And you realize that everything that comes with reinforcement attached to it, be it the police, be it the military, be it these county officers, it is so, the mentality behind it is so colonial. The way the colonialists raised some people to be able to tame their fellow Africans, that is the mentality that goes through them. So how do we cure that? we cure that by training these people in people management skills. It's not about the force, but it's about people understanding the policy, understanding what you want them to do, and then putting them in that line. But again, there is another gap. These hawkers, if these hawkers had stable facilities to be able to work from, would they be moving all over the place? So it is also an indictment to our county governments and even the national government in terms of managing specific areas where hawkers can be able to sell their wares, and then they are knocked out of the main operation area, maybe the CBD or the county headquarters, so that there is sanity prevailing in that situation. So it's a two-way thing. We fix the behavioral part of the officers, and we also create the infrastructure for an easy operation for the hawkers. We'll have solved the issue wholesomely and not piecemeal.
All right, Lenga Trust, thank you so much for taking us through this session of the newspaper review. I think that tomorrow, and also look forward to having you another day. And we cross over to a different segment altogether. I'll be updating you on what is happening on the roads, and equally we discuss extensively the issues that are at hand, matters politics over the weekend, and technically what has been happening in the current issues or in the world, that is across the world, in terms of, you know, current affairs. Thank you so much for keeping it TV47. Importantly, that you still be part of the next session, #Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. And we get to sample some of your comments as we proceed with the broadcast. Thank you once again, Alenga. We get to see you some other time.
Thank you, Linda. Have a blessed Monday.
And you too. Bye-bye. All right, welcome back to Morning Cafe. It is time for the current affairs segment, and today we focus on the politics of the weekend. Nothing much in terms of, of political activities, but all the same, there's at least 2 or 3 things that we can touch on this morning, and that's exactly what we'll be doing. We'll be taking a look at the wrangles within Kanu, and of course that is especially at the level of Nyeri County. We'll also take a look at matters Mlembe Nation and the Tanga leaders that toured Kakamega, and also the meetings between Gideon Moi and some of the leaders from the Mlembe Nation, and the levels at which this is likely to alter the political situation come 2022. Joining me to expound more on this is Betty Adera, who's amongst the leaders of Kanu Women, and now of course she's the chair of Kanu Women Nairobi, that is Kanu Women Congress. So she will be telling us what exactly is happening within the party, because it looks like they're making so much so in terms of twists and turns in preparation for 2022. Betty, you are well this morning?
Thank you, Linda. Good morning. I'm well, and I wish you a happy new week and happy new month. Thank you for having me here this morning.
Yeah. All right. Good to have you. All right, and speaking of which, before we even loop in Betty extensively, it's important that I call you to interact with us. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela at TV47. The numbers to call running down on your screen, and also the SMS short code is right there, so you can drop in your comments as we proceed with this conversation on matters politics in the country. And Betty, coming to talks of matters Kanu, here we are. It looks like you are preparing so much so, or your party is preparing so much so, and taking different directions in terms of ensuring that they entice or they lure people across the country to join the bandwagon. We know very well that, hugely Kanu enjoys a lot of support from across the country, but it's also necessary that, these inroads are made, so at least you master and register this. Looking at the wrangles in Nyeri County in terms of leadership, what does it speak, first of all?
Thank you very much, Linda, and you correctly say that actually the plan of Kanu Party has left the hangar. It's actually heading towards the runway, gaining speed for takeoff towards 2022, of course, under the leadership of Senator Gideon Moi, who is also the Kanu Party leader. I just want to say that a party such as Kanu, that had been in power, that was the Independence Party, has structures across the country. And now that the journey towards 2022 has already begun, the structures are being, woken up, the structures are being revitalized, the structures are being freshened up. And of course, with a luminous party, such as, Kanu, with such a bright future, wrangles are inevitable. And just like it happens in every other party. But for me, I would underscore, these wrangles, because the leadership of the party is tight. Matters are being handled within the structures of the party. And of course, you'd expect, a fusion of old and new, a fusion of, old and fresh, to come in and cause a little bit of friction. But in my view, as an insider, of the party, of the Kanu Party, this is nothing to worry about. This is normal storming and norming of people, of groups, of people who've been there, of new people who are coming in. And of course, matters are actually in control. But even more importantly, towards 2022, you reckon that Kanu Party, under the leadership of Senator Gideon Moi, joined and signed a post-election pact with President Uhuru Kenyatta in the Jubilee Party, and is now part of the Jubilee coalition, that is ruling between now and 2022. And that is significant because Kanu now is supporting the president to meet his legacy and also to figure out how to move forward, the handshake and the BBI, and now, of course, the response for COVID, that is a global pandemic.
Probably just returning the favor in terms of how the president is handling KANU right now, knowing very well that come 2017, there was an expectation of, Gideon Moi to be on the ballot, but later on, KANU decided that they're not going to front a presidential candidate, and they endorsed the presidency of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Moving on and taking a look at, the leaders that we are talking about, KANU meeting them. First of all, actually, before we even get to that, we're talking about KANU Fresh and the leaders that are wrangling between each other in regards to issues to do with matters KANU, like you say, it shouldn't be cause for alarm, but not as fresh as one would assume. What is being done within KANU to incorporate a leadership that is fresh, leadership that is youthful for that matter?
Actually, the branding of fresh just brings, to the fore. They need to incorporate more youth. They need to incorporate more women. They need to bring to come to the realization that we are in 2020. We are not in 1963, and the party needs to have the appeal, of the young people of Kenya today, who are the majority. The party needs to have an appeal, to women who are also a formidable force in the political field in Kenya. However, having said that, I also want to state categorically that the fact that KANU has rebranded fresh does not mean that its foundational principles has changed. KANU still underpins, its pillars and foundations under the peace, love, and unity pillars of the party and also of the country. And those are the things that we in KANU are championing, have championed, and will forever champion as long as we're alive, on this earth. Now, back to your specific question of what is it specifically that is being done to freshen up KANU and bring on board youth. Now, KANU has two strong congresses. So there's the KANU Youth Congress, there's the KANU Women Congress. So these are the two main wings, if you like, of KANU to ensure that we are bringing on board, young people, we are bringing on board women, both young and old, so that the space for KANU is an expanded space, for democratic movement forward, and every thought or idea of a young person or of a woman in the KANU space is actually being taken into consideration, and the rebranding, and moving forward and strengthening the party structures is actually ongoing at a national level. You realize that just a few days ago, the party leader, Senator Gideon, unveiled the registration platform, that would be online, but also, you can also do it physically. And this is just to show that, hey, look, we are back, and we are back with a big force. And this is the time for anyone who's thinking about which party to go to. Your party is KANU. This is the time that if you're even in another party and you're not happy there, your next option is actually KANU, and the system has been availed. And even prior to that, Linda, you realize that our senator, again, as a party leader, unveiled a smaller core team, that would help steer leadership of the party in this expansion phase, steer the party to ensure that the structures are strengthened towards 2022. And then lastly, within the KANU Women Congress wing, there's already robust plans, that are going on to ensure that the women within that wing are actually capacity built as members, but also capacity built as aspirants. And this time round, we are going to see a formidable force of women, young and old, aspiring for various political elective positions come 2022.
All right, looking at the probabilities of us having a referendum, and also the probabilities of us not having one. So the question then would be, as you position yourself for 2022, in the event that there's a referendum, what is the ultimate goal? And in the event that there's no referendum, we definitely know that the ultimate goal is that one of ensuring that Gideon Moi clinches the presidency. So on this other side, if there's a referendum, then what?
Referendum or no referendum, Linda, what I would say clearly is that KANU as a party is going to be a formidable force in 2022 and would be part of the government come 2022 in whatever form, shape, and the type, that will come to it. But listen, the essence of having a political party is what? Is to acquire political power. And that is what we in KANU are focusing our efforts on. We are trying to look more internally. We are trying to look more internally into what else can we or should we do differently? Which aspects of our party should we need to strengthen? How should we ensure that the key message, of peace, love, and unity, which is the foundation of KANU as a party, are revitalized all the way up to the household level.
All right. Well, interestingly, what prospects do we have? Or what are the likelihoods that President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to be there to push the agenda of, that is Gideon Moi?
Well, as we currently stand today now, the Constitution says that a president can only go for 2 terms. And President Uhuru is in his, second and final term as per the current constitution. But remember, as even you have correctly said, there has been a very strong and long-term, relationship between the Kenyattas and the Mois, between Senator Gideon himself as a person, as a leader, and His Excellency the President Uhuru. And I want to believe that on almost every front, they have read from the same script. Look at even in 2017, while KANU stood firm and said we are not folding our party, to join Jubilee, but we want to support, the agenda of Jubilee. So they were already a partner of Jubilee, and they followed all that through by signing a pact, post-election, not too long ago, just to say that, look, President Uhuru, this is your term, this is your second term. We want to be with you. We want to help you. Leave a strong legacy. We want to help you make a big difference in the last 2 years, that is left towards what you promised to do to Kenyans.
All right. Well, okay. I would have wanted to ask, what makes you think now President Uhuru Kenyatta will endorse Gideon and not Kalonzo Musyoka, who they also have an agreement with, and not Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who also has a, historical background, from way, way back. I would want to ask that, but all the same, I think I will overlook that and not ask it. But come to this aspect of Gideon meeting key Western leaders. And in this case, we're talking about, one, Francis Atwoli. This is not strange because we know very well that he's a lifetime member of KANU, like he always says. CS Eugene Wamalwa, and now Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya. You realize that at some point in time, Francis Atwoli has endorsed, of course, the pushing of President Uhuru Kenyatta because he claims that President Uhuru Kenyatta is pretty much young to exit the stage. You realize also that Governor Wycliffe Oparanya is on his second and last term as governor and has also declared his interest on matters presidency. So when they meet Gideon Moi and they chat way forward on matters politics, what is the guarantee that indeed that they will be there to front him and to push his agenda come 2022?
Well, as you correctly say, Linda, we live in an expanded democratic space, and literally anyone who meets the criteria as set by our constitution can run for presidency or can run for any elected position that exists come 2022. Now, a lot of significance here regarding this particular meeting you're talking about, and I just want to highlight a couple of things. One, remember, we are still having the ongoing conversations around BBI and within this framework of the handshake. And you recall that by the time, the BBI rallies were, picking up speed, this was before COVID-19 pandemic. Senator Gideon Moi, as the party leader for KANU, was by and large, off that seat because at that time his father, the former President Moi, was suffering ill health and, eventually passed on, and may God rest his soul in peace. But now that chapter is done, and done with, of course, now Senator Gideon, would want to come in and be part of the conversation strongly and on the front line insofar as what's next for BBI, what's next for handshake, and also contribute his thoughts, and services towards strengthening the response for COVID-19 at national and county level. So that is. Secondly, I also want to just make a note that where were these people meeting? These leaders were meeting at Kabara. Remember, Gideon is senator, for Baringo County, in as much as he is the party leader for KANU. And anyone who wants to meet him can meet him anywhere. Can meet him in Nairobi, can meet him at the Senate, can meet him, at his home in Nairobi or at the party, KANU party headquarters and so on. But it is so significant, leader, that these leaders met, in Kabarak home, and this is a very, very strong message that is being sent to particularly people of Rift Valley that, hey, look, I am actually, the kingpin of the region, and I am, taking this bull by its horn, and I'm holding this particular mantle, again, to want to reach out to other parts of Kenya. Another purpose for this meeting, I want to believe, was also to raise the profile of Senator Moi as the KANU party, leader in Western Kenya, and probably when it is safe to do so, post-COVID, plan, a visit to Western Kenya to look at what's going on there and to meet the leaders and the community members who are there. And he needs to do that alone. He needs to, start planning these meetings with the leaders who are there. And another thing could also be here, as you correctly say, that perhaps Governor Oparanya, being in his last term, would certainly want to continue, being on the face of leadership of Kenya, post 2022, while he cannot run again, as governor. Time is now to start having conversations in terms of what else, what kind of allies, what kind of agreements, what kind of discussions can he need to start having, so that they're sure that not only him as a person, but the entire Mlembe nation, is brought into government, as a.
Betty, let me come in. Speaking of Mlembe nation, how well does Mlembe nation get into government? With Gideon Moi being atop at the helm, because this has been the talk. It's okay. There's been a lot of democracy that has been witnessed within the Mlembe nation, in the sense that they always come out to, front somebody who's not their own. And then again, the talk on ground is that at least for once now, we need to get at the top of the helm. What are the likelihoods now? What does it speak? Because this has not augured well with most of the leaders in Mlembe nation, because they're talking about, the fact that there's so much doublespeak amongst the likes of Oparanya and amongst the likes of, Atwoli, who's always posed as the key figure towards ensuring that eventually the Mlembe nation is able to attain total unity and also maybe get a chance right at the top of the helm. So is there some level of hypocrisy in addressing the issues of Mlembe nation?
I wouldn't call it hypocrisy, but I would want to call it that, I want to say that there is a group, of leaders from Mlembe nation led by, spearheaded by Francis Atwoli, led by Oparanya and Wamalwa and that team, who are trying to say that, hey, can we look inwardly as a Mlembe nation and how we have performed in 2017 and also in previous elections as a community, and figure out ways in which now they can do things differently to be sure that as a community they are part of government. Remember, no one wants to be outside of government. That's again another reality and another truth. And another truth also is that no single party, no single ethnic community or ethnic bloc can clinch the presidency, of this country. We are just as diverse, as that. So the aspect of coalition, the aspect of, deciding who can work with who, in my view, is actually wisdom. And I want to believe that the Mlembe nation leaders, led by Atwoli and led by Oparanya and Wamalwa, are beginning to say that, hey, we've been out in the cold, for so long, and it is time that we become a force also, in government, and come to the negotiation table, as a community, and say, hey, this is what we can deliver, but this is also what we want. Remember, why are they coming to Gideon? They could have as well gone to, the deputy president for all we care. But there's every likelihood that KANU, is going to form a formidable force in government come 2022. And anyone who wants to be in government, KANU is your party, and joining and having those conversations is right now.
All right. One that would ask, Mlembe nation coming to forge an alliance with KANU, of course, what would be the main benefit? Like you've tried to expound that more. But then a question is this: if they join in and they support KANU, there are likelihoods that indeed KANU is going to get more numbers, Gideon is going to get more numbers, because we know hugely how much, of a chunk the Mulembe Nation brings on table when it comes to votes. But the question then would be, what is left of the people of Kenya as they try strongly to root out the dynasty politics that has been ongoing? I mean, are we going to revolve around the same key figures day in, day out? What progress will the people of Kenya get?
The conversation around the dynasty issue in Kenya, for me, at a personal level, I really even wonder where that really comes from, because dynasty is what? People are looking at the President Uhuru Kenyatta having been the son, of the first President Jomo Kenyatta. People are looking at Senator Gideon Moi having been the son of the second president, of Kenya. But look at who their fathers were. Who was Daniel Moi? Daniel Moi was a regular Kenyan. Daniel Moi was a teacher, just herding his cows, in Baringo, and trying to get an education for himself and raise his family. Was he dynasty? My understanding of dynasty is what? Look at the British monarchy, a thing that has been there, a system that has been there, and of course shrined even in their constitution, is what, to my understanding, a dynasty really is. Even right now, Linda, I could decide, to become the president, and then I would want to decide, to push my own son to also come after me and my daughter to come after me. Is that the kind of dynasty we are talking about? Hey, we are in an expanded democratic space, and every single Kenyan has a right, if you meet the criteria set by the Constitution and abide by the laws that are existing, to run for any position, that there is. One might also argue that they have been privileged just because, there were children whose fathers, occupied the house in the hill. Well, that could be true. But in terms of privilege, so should the privilege you had, stop you from wanting to aspire and ascend to higher political office in the country? I don't think so. And I want to just urge us all Kenyans to give these two gentlemen a break and just, judge them for who they really are, not judge them for who their fathers and grandfathers really were. Let's judge Uhuru for what he has done or not done for us in his presidency for 10 years. Let us judge Senator Gideon for what he has done for the people of Baringo as senator, and let's also hear him out when he will. We don't know when he will. Should he say that he wants to run for the big office? Let's just hear him out in terms of what is it that he will have, for us. Now back to the Mulembe thing, just to conclude that matter, Linda. Remember, it's just not the Mulembe Nation meeting Senator Gideon. The Mulembe Nation leaders, led by the same, Governor Oparanya and CS Wamalwa, not too long ago met His Excellency, the President Uhuru, and a lot of things, good things for the Mulembe world, came out of that, and we are beginning to see and hopeful that the sugar, industry and factories are going to, come be revamped and come back. And what would that mean for the youth in that community? What would that mean for the women there? So I think it's all good. It's all good. Let's always look at the good in everything, not poking holes at anything that is happening.
All right, we remember very well that sometimes last week there was that launch of digital registration for KANU members countrywide, with party leaders maintaining that they were keen to win the country to top seat in 2022. What do you suppose? Because then again, when you look at, joining hands with people or leaders from different regions, then the question is always what it is that, this leader is bringing on the table. And then the question then would be, these three key leaders from the Western region, what do you suppose they are bringing on the table for KANU, if at all this is what they would do throughout up until 2022, or if they're going to be part and parcel of KANU as they had promised, come to 2022? How much of the Western vote would they bring on the table?
Western region of Kenya is one of the regions in Kenya that is very, very vote endowed, very, very vote rich, right? And the sad thing that has happened, with that community over the last so many decades is that they've not been able to come round and vote as a bloc, to come round and be together as a bloc and say, hey, if we get into a deal, this is what we are bringing onto the table in terms of numbers. Remember, politics is about numbers. And if you have the numbers, then it means you're going to bring on board also a considerable number of elected leaders for all those, elective positions from that particular region. So that is key. Another thing that they would bring, to the table is, conversations around unity, conversations around peace building, and conversations around, common ground on things such as BBI, such as the handshake, such as referendum or no referendum. They would need to come in, and speak in one voice with the KANU party leader, Senator Gideon. So there's quite a lot of good things, that can happen if the two, factions come together. Of course, in a give and take, and should they clinch the leadership of this country come 2022, then of course, the division of the national cake, while it will be done, nationally and equitably, the Mlembe nation will be on the table when it comes to these discussions around that. Lastly, on the issue around the recent launch of the online, registration platform for KANU as a party, actually is meant to revamp, the party, is meant to, invite, accommodate as many people as can be. Remember, there's registration of like 100 shillings, but there's also registration of 500,000. So every Kenyan from all socioeconomic backgrounds have been taken care of. But what we are saying as a party is like, you are a young person out there, KANU is your party, and we welcome you to come in and help us rebrand it to look more like you as a young person. If you're a woman out there still wondering what to do from a political space, which political party to join, this is the time, to join KANU and be part of a train that is already, in motion towards clinching being part of government come 2022.
All right. Would you say that Gideon Moi is a project of the deep state endorsed to success President Uhuru Kenyatta?
What I'll say categorically is that Senator Moi, Senator for Baringo, and also the KANU party leader, is a man by himself. He has a CV and a big one to his name. So even as a person, he is a man on his own. And he's worked hard to build a CV, for himself. And if you look at some of these, corruption type of things, he is a leader who does not have baggage, So he's made himself as a person, and he has, gained, confidence of majority of Kenyans in that regard. Now, in terms of is he project of deep state or not, that's neither here or there. I want to believe, Senator Moi, has the credentials to be something beyond, Senator for Baringo, and step up to the national stage of leadership in Kenya. And we're already beginning to see, him making big steps, towards that direction. Only that now there's a lot of restrictions with COVID-19, which he also as a leader, must respect. But beyond that, we are going to see now Gideon Moi, the man who has made himself.
All right. Well, interesting view right there. And as we cross over to some more on matters of Mlembe Nation, we're talking about two Kalenjin leaders, or two key leaders from the Rift Valley who are in the quest of that. First of all, what does it mean in terms of the vote? Is it going to be divided, looking at Deputy President William Ruto's interest also on the 2022? This is a huge crack or a huge division in terms of how these votes are going to be shared. I mean, in a huge way, you will agree that it will alter the prospects of either of the two leaders, clinching this particular seat. What can they do moving forward to ensure that at least they do not lose out on this? Because there are likelihoods that you would get the endorsement from across the country. But if this is altered at your background, it would mean so much in terms of, either gaining or losing the vote.
You're right when you say that, there's possibilities of gaining and losing. But what I'd like to say is that the Mlembe Nation, historically, have hardly ever voted as a bloc, and that's actually the thing that, in my view, has been their downfall, if you allow me to kindly, use that word. But on the other hand, Mlembe Nation also holds the key actually will be the determining factor of winning or losing, the elections come 2022 at a national level. I want to believe the elections will be won or lost, in Mulembe Nation. So it is a region that all leaders, who want to aspire, to be part of government or to clip the presidency in 2022 would be keen, to get, inroads to. The extent to which, they'll be successful at doing that, still remains to be seen. But I want to believe that the direction that Senator Gideon Moi, as KANU party leader, is taking is actually the one that, in my view, holds a lot of water and sustainability, because who is he engaging? He's engaging, like the real leaders of Western Kenya. He's engaging leaders who the people of Western Kenya are saying, hey, we are tired of being misled by this other faction for all these years. We are tired of having, kingpins who lack self-confidence and self-direction. We want to move forward with a different kind of leadership within the Mulembe Nation to deliver us into government come 2022. But I would also want to speak to now the people themselves of Mulembe Nation. Time is now to interrogate your leaders. Time is now to look forward towards 2022. Time is now to look at who is this leader, who you want to follow, who actually has the capacity and the tenacity to actually deliver good, for you as a bloc, as a people come 2022. And I want to believe that team is none other than the team that is being fronted by Francis Atwoli, team that is being fronted by Governor Oparanya and CS Wamalwa.
As they front, we can just wish away the interest also of the people of Mulembe, the likes of key figures like Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, who are considered to be key, the coming in of the likes of Mohisa Kitui. So what are the likelihoods that these people are going to get something out of Mulembe Nation, knowing very well that the people of Mulembe Nation equally have their own interest? And importantly, in looking at the events of the weekend, you realize that these are two key figures from Rift Valley, like I had said earlier on, traversing the Mulembe Nation. So already the Rift Valley vote is divided between probably these two key figures. And now they're going to Mulembe Nation, probably with the interest of dividing these key votes, or maybe just clinching the entire votes from the Mulembe Nation. So when you look at this politics, what is it that you would assume Deputy President William Ruto is playing alongside, Gideon Moi, or why is it that they are against each other, in as much as we know very well that politics is a game of interest?
Politics is a game of interest, but it's also a game of history, present, and also a game of the future. And in our situation in Kenya, our near future is 2022. Now, to the deputy president, yes, it is in his right, democratic right as a Kenyan leader, as the DP, and perhaps an aspiring presidential candidate, to look for votes from anywhere and from everywhere. So when he's making inroads to Mulembe Nation and making inroads even to Nyanza and to all these other regions, it is within his democratic right, to do that. However, if I were these people, the first thing I'll just ask is that, what do you say with all this corruption baggage, that you have? You've not been president and you've been accused, or mud has smeared you on 1, 2, 3, 4. What are you going to do differently when now you occupy that particular seat? But having said that, back to the other leadership of Mulembe Nation, you mentioned Musalia Mudavadi, you have mentioned also Wetangula. Look at these two gentlemen, even historically, how they have performed in terms of bringing blocks. I don't think so. Look at how they performed in NASA. Currently, Wetangula is partyless, and Musalia himself is struggling, even within to keep his own backyard of ANC, together. Recently, we saw a post doing their rounds in social media of a proposition of Musalia Mudavadi for president and Weta, for deputy president. Who does that in this particular country? Do you want to be president only of the Mulembe Nation, or you want to be president of, the country of Kenya? The other incoming persons, interested persons such as Mohisa Kitui, a great man, might be a formidable force from a technical side, Politically, we're yet to see, how he's going to align. But what I know for certain is that as a standalone, he stands alone. He doesn't stand. He doesn't stand a chance. Time is now for people to be wise and for people to answer the question: do you want to be, part of government 2022? If your answer is yes, then you already know which side you need to follow.
All right. Someone just sent a message and asking, it is ironical how. At this point when Atwoli, is endorsing the handshake, supporting the handshake, he seems to be good and he seems to be that person who has the interest of the Luhya community at heart. But if he was supporting Deputy President William Ruto, everyone would have said that he's a bad guy. Do you agree with this statement?
Atwoli, as head of KOTU, and also as life member of KANU, also has rights, democratic rights, just like any Kenyan, to decide which, side of the political divide he wants to belong to. But what we have seen clearly from Atwoli is that he doesn't mince his words and he doesn't yumba. He's not here today, he's very, very consistent in his messaging, very, very consistent in which side, he belongs, whether it is frying or it is not frying. Even like when the time when KANU as a party, had really gone down, Atwoli was always wearing a branded hat of KANU so that it is clear that he is, a life member of KANU. And of course, he will only at this point and going forward, champion the interests of the party where he is a life member, and that is KANU. Now, in terms of supporting the deputy president, I don't think that's ever going to happen. That cannot happen. That will not happen. Not in our lifetime. Although the deputy president also has his own rights to run his race, the way he deems fit, as long as he does it within the confines.
All right. So politely, we should not even think of him ever supporting the deputy president. Anyway, that aside, the Raila factor. You know very well that Mulembe Nation has been considered as a stronghold for Right Honorable Raila Odinga. So where does this place him in terms of course, the numerous political activities and, changes that we've witnessed within the Mulembe Nation? Where does it place Right Honorable Raila Odinga?
I want to believe that the ongoings, the political meetings, that are happening, some we know about, some are happening, behind the scenes, are not news to Baba. And Baba has enjoyed, and I want to believe will still enjoy, quite a formidable support from the Mulembe Nation. And if you go down to Mashinani, by the way, given his blood relations also, in Mulembe Nation, down to the ground, people are always saying, these other positions can be anyone else, but at the top, is Baba or the side, that Baba is supporting. But remember, while the principles of the handshake was Baba himself and His Excellency, the President, BBI was born, and within BBI, now other like-minded parties, have come to join in support of it, KANU included, and also the fact that KANU is now part of the Jubilee coalition, just makes that force, even bigger, because KANU and ODM are not at war, with each other. And I want to believe that under the framework, of BBI, the handshake, referendum or no referendum, the two factions will, of course, work together. And if Gideon, as KANU party leader, is reaching out to Mulembe Nation, I think it is also in tandem with what Baba would do, or Baba would say. And together, by the way, if they hold, both hands together strongly, then they would be able to deliver Mulembe as a nation, as a bloc, into government, come 2022. So I want to believe that Baba's position is safe. Baba's position is not wavering insofar as, his support based in Western Kenya. And remember, even Governor Oparanya is an ODM.
And that brings me to my next question, Betty. That brings me to my next question. Knowing very well that some of these key leaders from Western region, have a footing in different parties. probably in this meeting over the weekend, one would say that, the only person who was on the right footing was Atwoli because he's a member of KANU. But looking at CS Eugene Wamalwa, looking at Oparanya, who's a member of ODM, and now they're coming out to say that they're in support of Gideon Moi. I remember also, Ford Kenya also releasing that statement just to say that one, CS Wamalwa against purporting to represent the interests of the party in various platforms. This is what they say: as a party, we want to distance ourselves from him and to categorically state that CS Eugene Wamalwa does not have any legal or moral authority to speak or transact any business on behalf of Ford Kenya party. I mean, where does this place their parties, the parties that got them to power, the parties that got them where it is that they are today?
I watched the news that covered this particular meeting, and we had Senator Gideon Moi speak as senator, but also as KANU party leader. We also had, the other leaders speak. But what they were saying together was what? That they came together to talk about BBI, to talk about handshake in terms of how to strengthen those, how to participate more, and also talk about how to strengthen the response for COVID-19 pandemic at a national and also county level. Now, Linda, these things that I've just talked about are not necessarily party-related issues. Any leader who cares for this country needs to come to the table where conversations around COVID-19 is happening. Any leader, regardless of their political affiliations or party affiliations, needs to come to the table where conversations around how to strengthen and move BBI forward, is happening. So from just that point alone, from what they said themselves, on national TV, I want to believe that it was not necessarily an ODM, KANU, the political party. In as much as we saw Atwoli there, we saw Gideon there, we saw Oparanya, and we saw, the CS there. But again, such meetings also don't just happen just for the sake of it. These are meetings that are planned. There's an agenda that we already, heard about. So when people are trying to say that Oparanya is abandoning his party, to support Gideon, personally, I think that is a misplaced statement. I want to believe he came in there in his capacity as ODM governor and wanting to say that, hey, how can we, work together now for the little time, that is left, and how can we ensure that we are grabbing, a piece of bread, on behalf of the people of Mulembe Nation.
Political leaders from Baringo also, castigated this meeting. Some of them arguing that, there's a purpose as to why, we should see CS Eugene Wamalwa moving around the country, also addressing the issues of the floods across the country. But they claim that, these numerous political meetings that he holds, especially this one over the weekend, got him spending more hours on addressing issues, matters, politics, and also, spending more time with these political leaders as opposed to executing his main mandate. What would you say about that in terms of, service delivery, in terms of having our leaders? And remember the other time, there was that, which was actually considered false report that the president had barred CSs from moving around because they were floating COVID-19 rules. But then again, he later came to quell that one and say that was not the case. So if allowed to move around, I mean, are this the kind of talks that we're expecting from CS Eugene Wamalwa and any other CS?
Specific to Eugene Wamalwa, yes, you correctly say he's CS for devolution. He's a national leader. He's operating at a national level and making sure that entire country issues concerning his docket, are actually achieved. But remember, CS Wamalwa is also a politician. He's also a political leader. That's even how and why he ended up, being nominated to be CS for devolution in Kenya. And we cannot run away from the fact that CS Wamalwa also hails from the Mulembe Nation, from Western Kenya. And in his capacity as a Westerner, he cannot just sit and do nothing just because he's CS and watch his people go astray. But if you look at the things that they said they discussed, BBI is actually a devolution issue. As response to COVID-19 is also a devolution issue. Conversations around just to what extent are the counties prepared, and ready to respond to this COVID-19, which is actually key. And I believe that still, fell within his right and in his docket. So I want to just urge us all to let's judge CS Eugene and all other CS based on their performances within their respective dockets, but also not to be blind and naive to the fact that these CSs are also human beings coming from somewhere, in this country, and always needing to go back home to respond to issues because they provide the alternative leadership back in their home backyards.
All right, we still see our leaders go against the restrictions that have been placed by the Ministry of Health in terms of dealing with COVID-19. Just how much do they need to be reminded that it's important that they abide by the same? President Uhuru Kenyatta talking tough, but again, we're still having a different picture in regards to the same.
They always say for ground victory different, and I want to just say that on that particular one, Kenyans now themselves need to come out and call out these leaders and help our president to ensure that leaders are not near anywhere around flouting the COVID-19 restrictions, regardless of which political divide they subscribe to. Because remember, COVID is not a respecter of person, it's not a respecter of anybody. If it catches you, it catches you regardless of really who you are. And like we've already said time and over again, Linda, in this show, that the war against COVID is not going to be won by the president or the CS for health. It's going to be won by all Kenyans, leaders included, strictly following and adhering to the COVID-19 restrictions. And I just want to urge all leaders to actually look at what Senator Gideon is doing. Look at what the KANU party leader is doing. All his meetings that we know about have never had a crowd, have actually, been respectful of the COVID-19 restrictions, ensuring that only a certain number of people, are in the room or are within the space. So it is possible to push political agenda. It's possible to push party agenda. It's possible to push developmental agenda, but following COVID-19 restrictions that we have.
All right. Well, speaking of which, again, also the key ones like Right Honorable Raila Odinga, Orengo, Atwoli himself, the likes of Peter Kenneth having this session or meeting together. What do you suppose would have been, while details of these meetings come out a little bit scanty, there's always snippets on what exactly to expect. And the BBI will also find its way on these discussions. Still, we're talking about the very same ones. Would we assume that, these are leaders who just wanted to check up on how Right Honorable Raila Odinga is? Or technically, there's so much in politics and lots of confusion that, Kenyans are set for?
You're right to say that perhaps they needed to check on how he is doing. We are aware he's been unwell. We are aware he's currently, on health rest somewhere in the coast region. And perhaps these other leaders just needed to meet him and just see how he's doing and reassure him and encourage him, enlighten him, and reassure him, that he's going to be well. So that's on one part. But remember, there are also other ongoing pending issues. BBI is one of them. So probably they could have also been there to talk about how to move the BBI agenda forward within the context, of COVID-19. The BBI rallies were never concluded. COVID, came in and stopped all that. But in terms of how else can that conversation, still be heightened to a logical conclusion. That could have been another one. Another one could also have been, remember, there has been a stalemate, at the Senate with, senators from ODM party, senators from, other political alignments, senators, within the Jubilee, broader Jubilee, not agreeing, coming together, to support the government agenda insofar as the revenue allocation bill is concerned. So perhaps that was also something that they needed to go and seek Baba's thoughts following his own statement regarding the stalemate. And to my knowledge, the Senate should meet again tomorrow, to push this agenda forward. So perhaps they also needed to just meet him and just have a conversation around building consensus on that.
We've seen Honorable Mbadi and also Honorable Edwin Sifuna pointing fingers at the rest, arguing, or their counterparts arguing that, it is not fair and right for anybody to blame ODM for the stalemate that is ongoing right now on matters, revenue sharing. If we continue playing the blame game, what are the likelihoods that we're going to get answers come tomorrow?
While I do not speak for ODM party, I think it is super important for Senate, the entire Senate, to approach this matter with sobriety, because it is about Wanjiku. As we speak, the counties are broke, counties are not having money, salaries are not being paid. And remember, we are already living in tough times because of COVID-19. And this is a time when personal interests need to be put out of the discussion. BBI need to be removed, from this conversation. Succession politics, even at county level, needs to be removed out of this conversation. And they come up with a middle ground. They can even do a hybrid type of proposal that will ensure that the marginalized counties are not marginalized further, and the counties that are actually having more people because of population growth are also not left with little money, because money should follow the people. That's also another reality. So something that is a middle ground. And I want to believe that if all interests are the same and they seed ground, that is actually achievable, so that Kenya can actually move forward and learn lesson on this one, because another similar conversation will come again after 3 years.
All right, well, we cross fingers that, that is addressed tomorrow for the interest, or in the best interest of the common Mwana Inchi. But that aside, as we get to wind up, we've spoken about the Mulembe Nation, we've spoken about, DP, Tanga, traversing the Mulembe Nation. But we do not go without also addressing the events that we've seen. Yes, there are likelihoods that Right Honorable Raila Odinga's ODM is targeting the Rift Valley region. I mean, all this is the interest of 2022. And also on this other side, we've seen what one would consider as daring DP, who has also dared to, try and come up with youthful programs and youthful sessions where they are going to see to it that they're able to traverse the Nyanza region and, garner something out of the Nyanza region. I mean, amid the talks of BBI, is there something that these leaders know that we do not know, that they still continue to campaign, even as we're talking about a possibility of a BBI that is going to take us to a referendum that is likely to help us change the system of governance?
Linda, the clock towards 2022 is ticking, and it has not slowed down, it has not stopped, COVID-19 pandemic regardless. And I want to believe that perhaps, that pressure, to gain considerable ground for political leaders ahead of 2022 is what could perhaps, be driving all that we are seeing. All leaders are moving everywhere. All leaders are trying to, get their feet, in grounds. And we are beginning to see even, other leaders moving into other non-traditional places where they would, normally, not go to or not even attempt. Yeah. But again, it is within the democratic rights, to do so. What I would just urge the leaders is, whatever you do within the confines of COVID-19. And also, if you're actually in government, and this is specifically to the DP, remember His Excellency, the President, just unveiled, a whole, huge program targeting young people. Is it called Kazi Mashinani initiative that is supposed to cushion and boost our young people, within the difficulties, that they're experiencing in COVID-19. And when you come up, you're in office and you're coming up with more or less like a parallel thing, then what message are you actually sending? But also to our people, me included, this is the time to really look at our leaders, with a very clear, fresh eye, look at their track record, look at what their motives really are, and come 2022, let us make, informed decisions in terms of who we want to put on the various elective positions as provided by the Constitution of Kenya. But one last thing I'll just urge all leaders is, no matter what you do, remember COVID-19 pandemic is real, and you do not want to be the one flouting the provisions that have been put in place.
Betty Adera is the leader, KANU Women Congress in Nairobi. Thank you so much for the great insights, as we hope to see you another time, discuss and expound more the current affairs. It was great having you this morning. And now it's time that we cross over to a different discussion altogether. Remember, it is World Breastfeeding Awareness Week, and we need to know just how much our ladies or our women or our mothers are aware of the key driving factors on matters breastfeeding. So the theme of World Breastfeeding Week this time is support breastfeeding for a healthier planet. So everyone else is called upon this, because for a long time it has been left for the mothers, and I think it's time that the narrative is changed, because we know it's pretty much important, and how much breastfeeding is of importance to the health of the babies out there. So yes, let's get to cross over to that discussion as we get to learn some more on matters breastfeeding. Esther will be joining me for that particular conversation, taking us through that. Esther is a lactation expert, and I know she has so much in terms of you ensuring that we get to learn, or you get to learn. So don't you go anywhere. Be part of this discussion. #Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela at TV47KA. Indeed, a discussion that you do not want to miss out on after this break. All right, welcome back to Morning Cafe. It's time for the lifestyle segment. And today, mommies, we got you covered. And actually, it's not just for mommies. I guess it's for everyone, because when someone is breastfeeding, yes, we're talking about breastfeeding, lactating for that matter, it should be, an involvement for everyone, including the daddy. Support is very, very important. I remember back then when some of us were breastfeeding, like every other person in the family was involved. They would make you milk, they would give you hot, like soup and all this. So it's an affair for everyone, and we are going to talk matters lactating, and we have a lactation expert on board with us this morning. Esther, good morning.
Morning.
You good?
I'm good.
Yes, Esther Karaoke. Good to have you.
Kimani.
Karaoke Kimani?
No, Esther Kimani.
Esther Kimani. Karaoke is not your name?
No.
Oh, all right,
okay,
well, Esther Kimani.
This is my grandfather's, but
you use?
My husband's is Esther Kimani.
All right, well, Kimani, I understand now. I understand where that comes from.
Yeah.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
All right, so what's the name of the baby?
We can give him a name. Or is it a her? She's in pink. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, all right. let's get a name that is that would just fit a man and a woman, a boy and a girl.
Amani.
Amani would work.
Yes.
All right, let's call the baby Amani. So yes, here we are this morning, and we're all about learning about lactating and breastfeeding a baby and all that. It's a process, right? Even before you get the baby, I think it's important that we start from there. So at what point then does the lactating process start?
Actually, it starts from the moment you get pregnant.
Okay.
When you get pregnant, the hormones that are actually helping the pregnancy progress also help the breast milk to start, your breast starts preparing for this work that you're going to do. And that's why for most people, suddenly you have a burst, or your burst increases right from when you get pregnant. In fact, some of the signs of early pregnancy is that your breasts either start getting sensitive, they start growing, they become tingly, and all those other symptoms that moms say. Yes.
For a moment you spoke about that, and let's just, before we even get to that aspect where, yes, one is pregnant, I've heard occurrences where someone complains of the fact that they're lactating, but really they're not pregnant. Why is this?
So if you're producing any milk and you are not pregnant, it's very important for you to go to hospital to get checked. Sometimes it's a hormonal imbalance. Most times it is a hormonal imbalance, and your body is producing the hormones that make milk. Though there's no reason to. So that one is something that should make you go to hospital to get checked. And
all right. So in this case, it's not always that when your breast is leaking, it means that you are pregnant.
Yes.
It's not always.
Yes.
All right. Yes.
But most times, it is.
It is the
you're
case.
Pregnant. Yes.
It's a beautiful feeling.
Yes. It is.
All right. So you spoke about breast changes. Notable ones. Yes, you feel a little bit itch.
It's sometimes soreness. You don't even want anything to touch your breast. Your breast will increase in size, and what is happening, the ducts inside the breast, the ducts that were there from when you were a teenager, start now maturing in readiness to be able to allow milk to flow through them.
I am curious, just before you even finish, okay, well, say maybe round one. Just a moment. All right, well, sorry, yes, for that one. Now, say today, this is what I've felt, maybe my first pregnancy. Is it always the same case with every other pregnancy for a particular person, in the event that maybe, yes, you have some issues, or maybe you can feel some level of uncomfortability with your breast, and then it goes on to the next pregnancy? Is it always the case, or it's different?
It can be different. It might be the same, because every pregnancy is different. And the hormones released to support every pregnancy tends to be different. And so what you felt with your first baby might not necessarily be
the same thing.
So that's the miracle of birth, I guess.
Yeah. All right, now let's get to it. Now at point one, of course, you're done with that. You're done with your weeks, and finally the baby is here.
Yes. So what happens the minute as you're going into labor? There are hormones that actually help you to labor, and as you labor and as your baby comes out, the hormonal levels in the body actually shift. And we call them the birth hormones. And there's one hormone that actually gives you contractions. It's the one that helps the baby to come out. And the pain that people talk, the labor pains. There's a hormone that helps to just bring the baby forth, and it's called oxytocin. But when now the baby is born and and baby is out, there's another hormone that is stimulated. That hormone makes milk. And so it joins this other hormone that was giving you contractions to help the milk to flow. So one hormone produces milk, and that's why you feel that the milk is filling up. And then the second hormone helps the milk to flow. And that's called the same oxytocin that gives you contraction. And it does the same thing at the breast. It helps the breast to contract and for the milk to flow out.
All right, I'm curious again, and I'm sure somebody else would be asking the same thing. You know, there are numerous cases where you hear that yes, you've gotten a baby, but one, of course, the milk is not coming out. Two, you know, you're not able to breastfeed. There are difficulties that come along with that. And you know, the normal difficulties of probably feeling pain and everything is okay, but there are times when literally the breast does not come out. The milk
does not come out. And these are some of the things we say that some interruptions during the labor process or the birth process can interfere with the milk coming in. For example, a C-section. So when you have a C-section, as I said, it's a process of birth. It's 1A equals B equals C. So when you like push out the baby, that moment when you send a signal to the brain. So when you bypass that and have a C-section, and that's why you'll find a lot of people with C-sections will have a bit of difficulty, because now you really have to work harder. You need to put the baby on the breast, because also, I call it the 3 Bs. There's the baby, there's the breast, and then there's the brain. So when you give birth, one of the things we encourage you to do is to put the baby on the breast immediately, so that now this baby can start, as they suckle, that suckling reflex sends a signal to the brain.
So what happened to this story? I don't know whether it's a myth or not. I'm sorry I am asking this, but I just want to learn. There are times you're told that even if you're not pregnant and you probably put a baby there to suckle, you know, any baby, any random baby, if they suckle a lot, then their likelihood is going to
get milk. And that's even for adoptive parents, especially if you've breastfed before and you adopt a baby. If you put that baby on the breast, that's one of the ways we call it relactation. And you are not pregnant, you did give birth to this baby, but that's why it's saying it's about the brain. The brain, that love feeling that you get, produces that hormone I'm talking about, the mothering hormone that makes milk, and milk will actually start to flow. We have stories of grandmothers breastfeeding their grandchildren. Maybe their daughter died, and then they were left with a grandchild, and the baby cries, and they just put the baby on the breast, and suddenly milk is coming. And that's the thing, it's about the brain. And that stimulation comes when this baby comes to the breast and suckles. That stimulates milk, and that will help milk to flow.
All right. So I don't know, I am asking this, you know, in the most random way possible, because this is Morning Cafe. We're all about asking the usual, you know, the questions that you've probably been having, and not anything to do with the medicinal aspect of anything. That one we'll get to, you know, on Morning on Garage, Body Garage, of course, with Tracy. We'll be doing some more of this, so it's a session that will be ongoing. But on this one, it's all special about, you know, the Morning Cafe fans. And in the event that probably you are pregnant and you're still breastfeeding, what happens?
So you can continue to breastfeed. Yes, you can. Just cover it with your doctor. As long as there's no complication, you're carrying a healthy pregnancy, you are being able to eat well, like everything is going okay with that pregnancy, you can actually continue to breastfeed. We do encourage you from around 30 weeks to stop breastfeeding, so that the milk that is in your breast can start converting to colostrum. Because that's already mature milk. So for some people, if they continue breastfeeding, their milk doesn't convert back to colostrum for now the baby who you're carrying, and the baby you're carrying also needs their colostrum. So we do
well, let's just assume there's someone who doesn't know what colostrum is.
Colostrum is
the heavy one,
is the fast milk, you know, that fast milk that comes,
the yellowish one.
Exactly, we call it liquid gold. That's with that yellow color, and it's full of antibodies, it's full of immunity properties that will help. First of all, they line your baby's gut, and as they line your baby's gut, they offer like a protective layer for the baby now that they've been born. They help your baby get antibodies for the environment. In fact, like right now, we are talking about COVID, and a lot of moms are wondering, if I have COVID, can I breastfeed? Please do, because as you are building these antibodies, you're giving that protective layer to your baby. The only thing we are saying is that if you're positive with COVID, you will have to wear a mask when breastfeeding your baby. So you wear a mask and let other people take care of the baby when you're not breastfeeding. But when the baby needs to breastfeed, they can be brought to you, wear a mask, wash your hands, wear a mask, breastfeed. Once you're done, give your baby to someone else who is negative, who is positive, who is negative for COVID, so that they can take care of the baby. But please do breastfeed, because those antibodies that you pass on to your baby will offer that protective layer they pass on to your baby.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yes.
Right there. So I look at baby Amani and I'm thinking for a moment.
Yes.
They must be hungry.
Yes.
So take us through the process. Just pretty much quick first, and the reason why we have all these
things.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are several things that you're laughing at my smiling baby.
I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah. So three things that I say that are very important, and I say this: baby, breast, and brain. So the first thing is that you should feed your baby on demand. So when your baby needs to be fed, and they will show you signs that they need to feed, and signs are they'll start off by stirring if they were asleep, and then slowly they start doing movements. They start, moving their head side to side. Is that they are looking for something, we call it rooting, and they are looking for this breast. They will start smacking their mouth, mwah, 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 mwah. They'll start, eating their fingers. And then finally, if you're not noticing all that, they'll start to cry. So the first thing that we say, please feed your baby before they need to cry. Because by the time they are crying, now they're agitated, and it will be harder to attach them to the breast. So follow their signals. The second thing is that the positioning of your baby. You must position your baby correctly. So when you bring your baby to the breast, the first thing is that your baby should be as close as possible to your breast as possible. A lot of times people say tummy to tummy, but if like your arm short, so if I say tummy to tummy, my baby's at my breast. But if I say tummy to tummy, so some people put the baby down here, and then they have to bend the baby. So what I usually say is that your baby needs to face their food, and their food is the breast. So if you are tall, put a pillow down here, so that your baby is as close as possible to the breast, and then the baby's whole body should be turned to the side. Now I want for you to do a small experiment. So turn your head to the side.
To the side.
Try and swallow. Yes. Try and swallow. That's really difficult, isn't it?
Difficult it is.
So most of us put our baby like this, and then we turn them. So that's the same thing as you turning and trying to swallow. That would be very difficult. So make sure that your whole body, the whole body of the baby is turned towards the breast, and even their head, so body and head.
Breathing
is that. So they will breathe because there is space.
There's space, right?
So when you bring the baby to the breast and they are close to the breast, what you do, you ensure that they will open their mouth, because when they come close to the breast, people wonder, what is the baby smelling? So your breast emits a smell that smells exactly like amniotic fluid. So when the baby is in the womb, they smell amniotic fluid, and then they swallow it. They tend to open their mouth and swallow it. So when they smell it, they're like, oh, I need to swallow.
This is it. All right.
So they'll open their mouth. And one of the things we encourage, if you've just given birth, even if you're taking a shower, please don't wash your breast with soap, because then you will change the smell of what your nipple is smelling, and that will confuse the baby. So try and avoid soap around the nipple. Just wash with water and allow those oils that are around the nipple to emit that smell. So when the baby smells that, then they'll open their head. So it's important for you to give not just the nipple, because a lot of people say, oh, I cracked, it was so painful. It is painful because if you just give the nipple, then the baby is not able to get a good latch, and that means they have to use much more, much more effort and pressure, and that's what cracks the breast. So what you want to do is to give the baby the nipple and most of the areola. Areola is the dark part. I think this one shows better, where you're seeing the nipple and the darker part. So you want the baby to take the areola and most of the dark part. Now, for most of us, I know the books say all of the areola, but the African boob, oh my God,
cannot allow you to.
So we say give the baby most of the nipple and the whole bottom half of the areola. So what you'll notice is that your baby's chin will be smack against the breast over here. And so as the baby suckles, you will see that the chin is what helps the breast, as it moves up and down, it helps the boob pumps out the milk. So it's very important for your baby's chin to be smack against the breast.
Okay.
And that will ensure that now the baby is getting a good hold on the breast.
And that in a huge way helps you not to feel the
not
pain.
to feel the pain,
right.
exactly. You won't feel the pain. So as long as the nipple is deep within the mouth, you won't feel pain.
Okay.
So that's what you're trying to establish when the baby is at the breast. So that's the positioning. For yourself, it should be straight. So put pillows behind you, be straight, so that you're not having to bend to go to the baby. So the baby comes to you, make sure you get most of the areola, and then allow the baby to feed for as long as they like. So you should let them feed on one breast until you feel like that breast, nothing else is coming out. What that does, it helps the baby to get what we call both sets of milk. So there's the first milk that comes out is just basically water and sugar, and that's for milk. As the baby continues on feeding, they get to the hind milk, which is the heavy milk. So if you're feeding your baby on one side and then changing them, they'll end up not getting very full because they won't be getting the heavy milk. So feed on one breast. We don't really watch the clock. Feed as long as they like until you feel it's empty. If they still want to feed, then now you can change them to the other side.
Mommy's with twins.
Yes.
With triplets.
With triplets.
I can imagine.
I have nephews that were exclusively breastfed up to 6 months. Because the
twins.
Yes. Your body. I have triplets who've been breastfed I have a mom who breastfed for 5 months exclusively. That's the amazing thing about your brain. So I call your brain a factory. And a factory will churn out the product depending on the orders they get, isn't it? So the order is having this baby on the breast and having them breastfeed. And as they breastfeed, your brain is like, oh my God, we need to make milk. So with twins, with multiples, you might need to pump a lot more. So once the baby feeds, you might also need to pump. But as you remove the milk, it's a supply and demand chain. The more you remove the milk, the more the brain makes.
All right.
So
speaking of which, now that you're talking about that, one, you mentioned something to do with exclusive breastfeeding, and I'd really want to know the importance of that. Because now that is exactly what everyone is told every other day. Ensure that you exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. Mothers are finding it very hard to do that. And I even remember fighting with my mom at some point in time because she is like looking at my little boy and thinking, well, he's so tiny. This is because you are exclusively breastfeeding. Why don't you get him some porridge? Why don't you get this and all that and everything? And sometimes you literally cannot produce enough milk. I mean, you still soldier on and push and ensure that you breastfeed exclusively?
Yes. Most times it just takes planning. A lot of us don't plan for it. So initially, the first few weeks, once you start breastfeeding the baby, you will find, as I said, it's a supply and demand. So what we encourage you is that at around 3-4 weeks, once you've settled, you're feeling better, you've healed, and you're always producing a bit more, you can start what we call expressing. So when you start expressing, your brain starts, it's like you're ahead of your baby. You start, you can store the milk, you can start storing, or you can start even expressing just a little more so that the baby can be given. But what happens is as you start expressing, and by the time you're going back to work, maybe a month, 2, you start storing the milk in your freezer. So what will happen, by the time you are going back to work, your body is already used to chucking a bit more and already used to expressing. Right now there's a law that protects mothers so that they're able to express at their workplaces. So when you go back to work, it is your right. Even if you don't have a workplace policy, it's for us to advocate for ourselves as mothers. You advocate so that you get that space, a lactation space where you can go and express the milk. So when you go home, you breastfeed the baby, but when you're away, you express, and then in the morning also before you leave, you express. Many thousands of mothers, millions of mothers are able to continue offering exclusive breast milk because expressing. So if you don't plan for it, it's gonna be a bit difficult. But even if your baby, if for one reason or the other you really cannot get breast milk, your baby is not yet ready for solids until 6 months because the gut, their enzymes are actually mature. So if you give your baby solids before they are ready, all the food will do is it's just a channel. It just goes. In fact, moms tell me, I gave porridge and I could tell from the poop that
it was
the baby took porridge.
So
all you're doing is irritating the baby's gut as it goes through. And that's why I speak to your doctor about a good supplement, which is basically an infant formula or an infant modified milk that is ready for baby. But what we encourage you is that with good planning, with good foresight, that I'm going back to work, so can I start expressing? And even most people tell me, oh, I express only 50 ml. But imagine if you do 50 ml and save it in like 2-3 weeks, you would be amazed. You will actually have storage for your baby when you go back to work.
Right.
So it's very possible with good support from the employer. Workout, right now there's a lot of working from home. So if you don't really need to go to the office and you're still able to work, you know, talk to your employer. Can I come in a bit late and leave in, you know, a bit later, you know, flexi time, expressing. If you live near home, can you rush home at lunchtime and feed the baby? So with good planning, you can actually achieve exclusive.
Just how crucial is support? Now that you spoke about it, and you say very well that of course at the level of the office setup, support is important. And back at home, what is the essence of it? How much does it come in handy to ensure that a mother is able to lactate well?
Oh my goodness, it works a lot. Actually, this year's World Breastfeeding Week is from 1st of August to 8th of August, and the theme this year is supporting breastfeeding for a healthier planet. Now, without support, most moms can't do it. It takes a lot for a mom to be able to produce milk for her baby. And as I said, it's about the brain. So if a mom is stressed, for example, so if you have a partner who is stressing you, so partners, I'm speaking to you.
Yes.
So if you're a partner and you need to support, you know, to support your, offering stuff like even at night, you know, sometimes going to make a drink for her so that she can breastfeed the baby. Just working out stuff so that, you know, there's no, you know, the drama.
Right.
Mommy drama that comes trying to lessen that. I have found that because we are a very patriarchal society, whether we like it or not, we are. So like the way you were saying, your mom would say, give porridge.
Yes.
So I noticed, like for me, when the moms in my life would come say give porridge, but my partner was like, no, we exclusive breastfeeding. Then they listened. When I said it
does not make sense at all.
They're like, no, you don't know.
You have no idea.
But because the man of the house has said, no, we're exclusive, then we're like, okay, they'll mumble, but then we're like, okay.
It's okay.
Yes. So that's the thing. It really, when you are, as a partner, supports this space, you find that the mom is able to do it, is able to support. But also grandmas, when you support her, and you know, I love my mom. She would bring me, you know, food. She would work out and shop and make life easier for me so that I'm able to breastfeed. So that support that the mom is offered to at home really makes a big difference. And that's why we are talking about everyone from employers to mothers. Guess what? As an employer, if this mother breastfeeds her baby exclusively, this mother is not going to be asking for time off.
I agree.
To go because the baby is unwell. She's more rested, like she knows, okay, I have had time to express, so I'm expressing, my baby is at home, they'll be okay. So her head is not at home thinking, I didn't leave enough milk for my baby. She knows that my baby is okay, so she's gonna be a better employee. So that support that we offer from the government settings, making policies that support, you know, breastfeeding.
Right.
So everyone supporting breastfeeding is a healthier baby. A healthier baby is a healthier planet.
Awesome. Awesome right there. So we have lots of stuff on the table.
Yes.
And I'm sure most of the times, you know, I've seen mamas doing this, like after you have expressed your milk, of course you put it in the bottle and then you expect this baby to suckle the bottle and all that.
Yes.
Is there anything wrong with that, or is it still okay to just use the bottle?
So especially, that's why I carried this. In the first few weeks.
Because, you know, I've been looking around and I don't see anything that has the,
yes. We really discourage any other nipple than baby's mouth. Number one, because
even the pacifier one,
even the pacifier, exactly, because it causes what is called nipple confusion. Now, the way the baby holds the breast in the mouth is very different from how the baby holds the teat. In fact, I'll call it a teat from the bottle. So it can cause, especially when the baby is very young, it can cause what you call nipple confusion. And nipple confusion basically is the baby gets confused. So when they come to the breast, suddenly it's almost like they've forgotten to breastfeed. Because the suckling motion. So in a bottle they suck, in the breast they suckle. Those are two different movements of the tongue. And that can confuse a baby. Then secondly, babies are naturally lazy. So with a bottle, they're like, top, 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 top. They almost don't pause. Then they are full in 2 minutes. With a breast, they have to spend time there. So they're like, no, me,
They
I
will
want
opt for the bottle.
Yeah, that one, that's
the
easy.
easier one.
And as I've said, we need baby on the breast. Otherwise, breastfeeding won't be very successful for you to produce enough milk. The third thing is infection. So we found bottles becoming great sources of infection for this baby with not good immunity, just because of cleaning. So we encourage you to use a cup.
Okay.
Yeah, and a baby can comfortably take a cup. It's so easy to clean this cup.
Yeah.
And it's very easy. If you really can't, there are bottles, and this is a spoon, right? So the milk goes down onto the bottle, onto the spoon, and then you would be able to hold your baby.
Yes.
And usually when you're cup feeding, hold the baby a bit upright. And then for us, most of us think you want to hold the spoon like this.
I would have done that.
Yes. No, you tilt it to the side.
Oh, okay.
And then when the baby opens the mouth, because they'll open, you just gently tilt the spoon.
Right.
So what babies do is they lap like a cat. They do.
Yeah.
So that's what.
That could really be annoying because you're waiting for them to clean.
So you just tilt the milk until the baby is there. Same with a cup.
Okay.
You will just basically tilt the cup until where the milk reaches the baby, and then as let the baby control the flow. You just go tilting until the baby is done. So the baby is upright and they're able to actually take the milk.
No matter how tender they are, young.
Even 1 hour old baby can be fed with a
and you can put them more upright.
Exactly. Comfortably. You just support the head. As you can see, I'm supporting both the head and the spine. And I don't know why we are afraid of turning the baby, but in the baby, in the tummy, guess how they sit? They're like that.
Oh,
right. And they're even upside down. They're upside down. So they are okay. They're used to. They're actually used to. So all they need in their body, your body supports them. In fact, they are like that. So, but when they are out, they even have more space.
They have more space.
So as long as we support the head and the neck, and so you can actually keep the baby like that, so that they are able to be comfortable.
All right, awesome, Esther. Now let's take a short break, and we'll be right back with much more. Not really so much, because like I said, we promised that anything to do with the nutrition and understanding all that, we'll be also delivering the same on Body Garage. It's an entire month for breastfeeding. So I think we have to do a lot of sensitization and making people understand the importance of breastfeeding. After this break, we're right back with more.
They say relationships are a lot like algebra. You look